Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 1 of Hope Ninja Parents. Today, we're going to be looking at what is hope and what the hell does it have to do with parenting. I'm so excited. Let's get started. All right, so today we're going to be looking at hope. We're introducing you to our mission. I'm Cynthia Painter, mindset coach. I'm here with Louise. You want to introduce yourself, Louise?
I am Dr. Louise Metcalf. I'm a psychologist of almost 30 years. I specialise in mood disorders. I'm a mum and I'm the founder of Gheorg, the little robot who helps kids with anxiety and to build resilience.
We love Gheorg. You can check Gheorg out. We'll have the details below as well. He's a great app to help kids with resilience, anxiety, and all their big emotions. So what we're going to be looking at today is looking at what is hope. I think for many people here, we have a basic concept of hope, but it's maybe not the first thing we think of when we think of parenting. Now, Louise and I are on a mission that's called Hope Ninja Parents for a reason. Louise, you want to tell us how you've come up with this name and what's the mission we're all about?
Oh, yes. So we need more hope these days, very, very badly. But hope has a bit of an uncool name, I've noticed. It's not very cool to be thinking about hope, talking about hope, to be generally a more positive person. So we need to make it cool. And one of the best ways to make things cool is to make it a little bit ninja. So that's what we're doing.
Yes. And so we hope that you're on board and join us. Let us know if you're following along, subscribing, commenting, as we go, your thoughts on hope. And so this, Jen, we're going to talk about what is hope today, how has it got to do with parenting, what impact it has on kids, and when it's missing, how it is actually going to show up. And we're going to start with a definition. I've got mine. What's your thoughts on what is hope?
Well, I could give you the neuro version, but I'm going to give you something a lot simpler, which is basically it's an expectation of good things coming. Yes, very true. And from a mindset perspective, hope is an emotion, right? So we actually can be more in control of our emotions and our emotional states than we think. We're just not trained to do that. So when we have our certain emotions come into play, they really impact our thinking and our behaviors, and hence the reactions and results that we then display. So by being able to understand how to manage our emotions like hope, it will really help us with the behaviors and how we operate in the day-to-day world. And so we're going to help you guys bring this in. We want you to be on this mission with us. It's called Ninjas for a reason. I feel like we should have our bandana eye patches on, tied at the back, right? Because as parents, we want you to come and help sprinkle through hope in your parenting with your kids and the community at large. So I'm hoping that you're on this with us. Now, I'm going to ask you, Dr. Louise, to actually give us the more brainy version, give us the more neuro version definition. I know, because it actually, I really want people to see like this is a practical, real thing, right? Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I like what you're saying about how we can work on these things. We can build these things. That's absolutely true. So hope is basically a function of the brain. It's a skill set. And, it's sort of like a muscle. You have to build it. Unfortunately, we've gotten very kind of, not good at building this muscle, and we need to get really, really good at it for ourselves and for our kids. So basically, there's a kind of a structure. It's quite small, but it's like, look, I think it looks like kind of a snail shell. I've had people say to me, no, it looks like nothing like that. Maybe it's in the eye of the beholder. But hey, to me, it looks like a little snail, kind of in the sort of behind your prefrontal cortex there, and kind of bit more in the middle of your brain. And it's called the dorsal raphe nucleus. And yeah, I know. Sorry, neuro. But so that little connection of neurons basically talks to your medial prefrontal cortex.
And it also is where you kind of channel the decision, the brain decision, if you like, to kind of the switch to kind of either panic or to go into fight and flight. So it's a really interesting connection, right? And here in your frontal lobes is where you make all those really considered decisions, where you can plan and, you know, sort of generate, solve problems around sort of the future that you want. So there's this really interesting bit of science around if we can just make that connection between the medial prefrontal cortex and the dorsal raphe nucleus really strong, really, really strong, lots and lots and lots and lots of neural connections, we're actually able to shut down those fight or flight and panic reactions when we need to, when we want to. So, but to do that, that's called the hope circuit. So we need to actually practice and create hope a lot more in order to really make that nice and strong and thick as a connection.
Awesome. I love it. The hope circuit. All right. Everyone out there, I hope you're writing that down. Hope circuit, really important. So for me, and we talked about this before as well, it really is when people are in that place where they've built that muscle, it's helping kids, particularly because we know they go through a whole pile of brain development until they become adolescents, which I'm sure I read somewhere that adolescent boys, that you don't come out of adolescence till you're in your 30s. Scary, have 2 boys. But,
True,
but I know, I heard that. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, brown paper bag. But it's actually about helping when we all have hope, is building that muscle, that circuitry. It actually allows us to ride the waves of things that are happening in our lives. You talked about problem solving, you talked about big emotions, and I know on some episodes down the track, we're going to talk about some heavy subjects, trauma and things like that, that can help, as well as everyday elements. So this is really something that's just not even I think on people's radar. We, as parents and in the mainstream, we talk about building resilience, confidence, right?
Yeah.
All those things. Hope is just not one. So this is what we're here on a mission to do, to get you guys on the Hope Ninja mission as parents, because it has that ability to help people get, what I would call a resourceful state, coming from my background as a mindset coach, and therefore you're able to navigate when things happen. And I think that's a really important skill, and a set of where you're actually, your settings in your brain, your wiring in your brain, and how you operate and where you come from. So tell us your thoughts on how does hope actually, well, what has hope got to do with parenting? Like I said, most people are going to be looking at how to be a better parent, or how to get my kid more resilient, or how to stop a temper tantrum. That's front of mind. What has hope got to do with parenting?
Yeah. So I've just spent how many weeks in term 3 doing homeschooling in the pandemic. And of
course, here in Sydney. We are in the middle of lockdown. We're about to come out of lockdown. It's crazy.
Yeah, and a bit more to go yet. And like it's been very interesting. I've never actually taught a child how to read before. So I've been learning how to teach a child how to read. Fascinating stuff, right? And basically, it's a whole bunch of problem solving. Yeah, there's a lot of, repetition of learning in there, but it's a whole bunch of problem solving. How do you actually put letters together to make words? And, as a parent, we quite often do that, right? Our job is to kind of teach problem solving. Usually it's day-to-day kind of, how do I set the table? How do I put out the garbage? kind of stuff, problem solving for kids. But this is actually another version of problem solving when you think about it. Hope basically is, even when you strike difficulties, a word you don't know, maybe a sound you can't sound, you don't give up, because there's a sense of yet. So I haven't got this yet.
My favorite word, yet.
That's a good one, isn't it? I love this word. So basically it's that expectation that, okay, there's a hill right now, there's a gap, that I have to traverse in my learning. Maybe it seems really big, but I will get through this. There's another side to this. I do get to the other side, and the problem is solved. I do move on from this. So it's actually a, you know, core part of problem solving, hope, when you think about it. But it's something that, yeah, we don't really think about in terms of problem solving, that sense of we will be able to do this, maybe even do even more amazing things one day. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. There's a bit of that sort of growth mindset about from a place of possibilities, which is something that we need to develop as adults sometimes, let alone as kids. So important to put in there, because I wonder whether people would be thinking to themselves, well, hang on, my kid's not hopeless, which is a different definition, different word, hopeless, right? But how do you know, how would you think parents would know if they need to add hope? I think it's a given after what we've just defined, but what are some of the indicators that, you know, hope is probably something that's a bit missing, some things to look out for?
Yeah. It's a bit like, you know, laying the piano. Can your kids sit down and just sort of, you know, press on the keys? Great. That's an awesome start, right? Can they play music? Probably not. Mine can't, you know, not yet. So basically it's that kind of thing, right? Hope is a skill. So one day your kid is going to need a lot of it, more than they might currently need now, or might need to show now. So you might be seeing them just tapping on the keys, which is fantastic, but they really need to be a concert pianist at this. The world is not built for creating hope as an adult. I mean, I think every adult listening to this, certainly, you know, you and I can testify that the world we live in is pretty negative. Lots of bills, lots of news, you know.
A lot of messages, like with social media. You know, we used to talk about comparing.
Yeah, the rage machine. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to compare ourselves. We're wired for comparison. Comparison is just such a killer, I think, to how people approach the world. But we used to compare ourselves to the Joneses, and the Joneses used to be in our neighborhood, right? And then as we got more sort of compact dwellings, the Joneses were in our street. And now the Joneses are in our back pocket, right? Yeah. So, because they're in our social media. So we have that continuous comparison, but also we have a continuous messaging. And particularly when you're a time like at the moment, we're in lockdown. We're going to talk about lockdown in another episode. But particularly at a time like this, there's a lot of messages. But even outside of that, sometimes as people, we can be wired to go to the negative rather than the positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's an evolved ability. We evolved into these sort of, creatures who are able to spot the risks in life. And awesome, right? That kept us alive, saved us from a few saber-toothed tigers. Not that there were any saber-toothed tigers around when human beings were Stone Age, but just read that out. It's much more fun when you say saber-toothed tiger.
We get that picture. It's good.
Exactly right. So it saved us. It was such an awesome evolved ability, but the brain doesn't evolve very fast. It can create connections amazingly well, and can create heaps of connections amazingly well. But there are these sort of structures in the brain, and they do not evolve very quickly at all. So we still have these sort of quite primitive kind of components of the brain which haven't evolved. But given the way that we treat our brain, it's really not that surprising how many of us sit around and, you know, really focus on the positive stuff and the hope in life over the risks and, you know, problems like having to pay bills and things, right? Not very many. So
yeah. So I think it's about, and we've had a lot of chats about this. I think it's an overlooked. Hope is looked at something as whimsical, maybe even religious, and we're not certainly coming from that background or whatever. No, like we're right out in the normal space of just talking about it as an emotion and how the brain works. But hope is sort of seen as it's not a common mainstream language when we're talking about how we operate as human beings or as kids operate. Again, we come back to resilience and confidence and well-being. Lots of well-being is our bit. So I would love people to see hope as actually maybe a missing link here, a missing piece of actually how to look at the world in a place of possibilities. I'm running with, I don't care who else is with me, I'm running with the idea that it really helps us ride the waves of life and troubles that come our way, because it does put us in that place of possibility, which is where the languaging, I'm a big personal language. We'll see that in future episodes, but the language like yet, right? So powerful, right? Because it opens the brain up to be in that growth mindset of options rather than fixated. The brain has a natural, the mind has a natural affinity to actually close in. When there is a problem, we spotlight it because our brain's trying to protect us from the saber-toothed tigers, and so forth. And then it's like, danger, Will Robinson. Okay, is anyone old enough to remember that? I watched reruns, I promise, right? Danger, Will Robinson, right? It's like the brain is trying to alert us. And if we don't work this muscle or have this muscle really naturally already working, or the hope circuitry already working, then we get in a really stuck place, which means we're not resourceful in a resourceful place to be able to ride the waves and then be able to deal better through the outcome.
I like that. I like this waves idea, like the journey of waves. That sounds really good. And you can think of it like riding a bike, right? Like as parents, most of us want to have a go, or are having a go, not very well at the moment. Teaching a kid how to ride a bike, right? This is a bit like that. We need to kind of see it as, like you would teach your kid how to ride a bike, so you would teach your kid how to hope.
Yeah. And we're going to give you, in each episode, we're going to make sure you have some practical takeaways and some fun takeaways, I think, along the way as well, on how we actually bring this in to not only our kids' lives, but our own, because we have to work that muscle too, right? To be able to, and to role model it. And particularly when it comes to teenagers, because their BS thermometer is way up. So you want to come from a place of practice with this as well.
Definitely.
So let's can we talk about just in general, how do you do this, and then we'll just give a practical takeaway before we finish up today's episode.
Well, you do have to role model, right? So role modeling is big, very big. You want to transfer a behavior. You might not see it right away, right? Which maybe sometimes confuses people, but definitely role modeling is the key. It is super powerful. So my favorite thing is to practice hope. Like, how good are we at noticing when those moments where you're like, oh, I told you that I could keep going with this, right? And like, how do you do it? How do you go from there to, no, I can do this. Let's have another go, right? So how do you practice hope? How do you show planning? How do you show a vision of what something will be? And then, okay, maybe it doesn't turn out to look Instagram worthy, but but it's still fun and it's still great, right? Like, how do we do that? How do you practice hope? And then you have to think about how you can have those conversations with your kids, like those moments where, okay, you're coming up to Halloween. Some people, have those kind of parties, and some people don't. But let's say you want to throw a Halloween party. It doesn't turn out Instagram worthy. Maybe you don't get as many guests as you were hoping for. How do you have that conversation? How do you say, I am disappointed to your kid, and then go, but I'm still going to have an awesome time, right?
Yeah.
Like a really honest reflection on the ups and downs of life, and how you can very deliberately put energy and choose the up.
Yes. Yeah, I love it. Deliberately choosing the up. And it's not as easy as it sounds. We are certainly going to, as our mission is to make sure that you have tools that you can put into your toolkit every episode, right? To be able to help you, because very pragmatic here. Want you to be able to walk away so that you can actually instill it. And maybe keep that in mind, that we want to be able to, how do we turn it up without, let's just touch on this for 1 second, without like negating if something's really wrong. It's like, we go for somebody, someone's just passed away, right? And you are really upset, and rightfully so, and those emotions are really important. Don't want to go, oh, we're just going to ignore those emotions, push them down, and hey, but we'll have cake at the wake. So can we let's just clarify that for a second, just to contextualize that.
Yeah, absolutely. Never suppress. Anything you suppress is going to get bigger. So don't suppress. Suppress is the oh yeah, that's sort of 1950s really, isn't it? But yeah, do not suppress. Those emotions are real, they're valid, they're useful, they're just information, right? All challenging emotions are just information. It will come and it will go. So you have to show that this is what you do. This is how it feels. People don't turn up to your party, or a much more serious one if you do lose a loved one. And then how do you progress through it, and actually showing your child how you do that in a really open way, and you might stumble and fall. Not everybody's great at, particularly grief, right? Grief is a real challenge, but you're going to have moments where, you do stumble and fall, but those are opportunities to really get to know yourself, and then talk to your child about how this works in real life,
Yeah, absolutely. So to clarify, everyone, we're not sticking the rose-colored glasses on. We're not going, oh, the world's all lovely and we're just going to skip through the roses. We're not talking about that as well. We're literally talking about how do we get ourselves and our kids, and therefore our community, in a position where it can ride those waves, those ups and downs that come through. We are really all about empowering kids to be able to deal with and overcome. Actually, we'd love to get rid of childhood anxiety. Wouldn't that be great, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So we're here to help that through you parents, to really come, and carers and guardians, and we'll just use the word parents as interchangeable, but be able to actually have us role model. I think that's a really good place to start this behavior with our kids. But it's not about not being real world either. We're not airy-fairy, whimsical here at all. I mean, for God's sake, you have a mindset coach and a psychologist.
Yeah,
we're going to be pretty practical as we go. All right, so I think that leads on to our one practical takeaway. Can we have that around role modeling? What's one thing that we as parents can start doing to get us in this place of practicing hope, to start building our own muscle?
Well, the really easy one you can do, there's actually heaps of exercises that, we could pull out here. But I think one of the great ones is to kind of just on the way to school, just kind of talk about, what the day might look like, and have a conversation about hope. So a lot of kids are in lockdown at the moment, but if you're actually heading off to school soon, you might have that conversation of, look, how excited are you to see your friends at last? There could be a realistic kind of follow-up to it, which is who knows what they're going to be like, but this is going to be fun because you will see them, hope, which is really real, just because you will see them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So starting to have conversations even with ourselves, maybe watching some awareness of our own conversations and the other things that we're talking about, because we don't have a filter necessarily to catch us. So let's build some awareness on what we're saying. And with our kids, particularly looking at the positive. We come from a positive psychology space, looking at what the opportunities are that could be positive without, again, pushing down any anxiety or nerves or stress, or like, oh, it's going to be so terrible, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We want to have some up on the wave.
Yeah, have some talk about hope. What do you hope for the day? Yeah. You know, adults are really good at suppressing hope. So quite often when we talk to each other, it's and it's a little bit Aussie as well, not to kind of talk about the things that we hope for, because it's a little bit uncool. But we need to change that. We definitely need to start having conversations about hope and being okay with those conversations.
Yes, that good old tall poppy. But what makes the best story? A negative or a positive, right?
Exactly.
So when we tell our stories, we all get, it's like, oh no. And of course, sometimes we do get connection or appreciation because of a woe is me story that we do go through, right? People relate.
And sometimes we don't want to offend people too. It's like, I won't talk about the good stuff in my life or what I'm hoping for maybe for the holidays, because you might not be able to go for a holiday or something, right? Like, we have to traverse this difficult territory. It has to be okay to talk about what we hope for.
This is so very true. And I've just realized, even from all my own work, that I've had people in other states going, oh, we're off to the beach. And I'm like, well, I'm not. I'm in lockdown, right? We do it unconsciously sometimes, rather than, I'm going for a great walk again. But we play down sometimes the good stuff, right? Because we don't want to come across maybe as arrogant or whatever. But also I do think sometimes if we focus on the good or the possibilities, and then it's like, well, I don't have anything to complain about, or I have to keep repeating it. And I think we're as we go through, this is maybe a bit of a takeaway, is as kids, as myself as kids, I was, born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, big hair, shoulder pads in the 90s. But through that, I don't know if it was just me, but through that, we were really dialed down any potential cockiness, right?
Grunge, the 90s, grunge.
Yeah, right?
Hope is just not cool.
Right? And even like, as my parents and that, you instead of as a child, you do have a natural hope. I think you do naturally look at the positive, and we get that a little knocked out of us on, I'll be realistic. Oh, but what if it doesn't work? Or if you don't get the first, the role in the play or whatever. And so we knock down our expectations, right, of what could be, rather than having a good dose of expectations. And I think expectations are a double-edged sword, but like a good dose of expectations and an up that goes with it.
Well, we kind of had the expectations knocked out because people did, maybe some parents didn't want to deal with the difficulty conversations, right? It's like the sadness of not getting the part in the play or something, right? So that actually goes back to suppression. So we actually want to not suppress, right? So you want to hope for the good stuff, you're not going to get all of it. That's life, and that's what we want to do. We want to navigate both, not just kind of go, just forget that.
Yeah, because we get into this place of not wanting to deal with the disappointment. So we dial it down in the first place. Oh, so many neurons are firing. I love it. Light bulbs are going off. All right, this has been great. Well, I've loved this chat. This has been our first episode here on Hope. We are going to be back as Hope Ninja parents. So what we've had a chance to talk about today is we've talked about what is hope and what the hell has it got to do with parenting. I think we've seen it's got everything to do with being a person and parenting, and how some ways we can actually build some hope starting with us as parents as well. The ninja. So I hope you guys let us know in the comments. Are you on board? You're going to come and join us, call to arms on our mission as Hope Ninja parents, guardians, carers, and so forth.
grandparents, Hope Ninja grandparents.
Oh, gosh, I love that.
Love that.
Show us your skill. Show us your skill.
We're going to get little masquerade masks that we hold up with our little ninja things. Doesn't wreck our hair.
Yeah,
just
right.
Hair's important. We've just coming out of lockdown. Anyway, so we hope that you hope that you join us for future episodes. Do let us know what you took out of today's episode. We will be having quite a few coming up very regularly for you. Do like, follow, subscribe, whatever platform you're watching this on, and stick some comments in. You can contact us that way as well. And if you're wanting to get the Gheorg app, which is a kid-friendly robot for primary school kids to help them with their big emotions, their resilience and anxieties, then the details will be down below for you for that as well. All right, we're going to sign off. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.